Hello, everybody. It's Friday the 24th. Thanks again for tuning in. I want to say that in the end of February, if we look back at Fauci, Dr. Fauci, saying there's nothing to be concerned about this virus in the US, I think everything, and he used the phrase at this time, but Fauci was saying through the last day of February that he does not expect this virus to kill any more than the annual flu. And let's remember, the flu kills in the world 650,000 people on the average every year. And we have between 40 and 60,000 people dying in the United States from the flu every year. It's been higher. I think in 2017, 2018, it was 85,000 people in the US, I believe, died from the flu. It was a bad flu season. And of course, we had many more die 100 years ago with the Spanish flu. And that took a period of 18 to 24 months to actually, before our immune systems were able to build up our immunities, the antibodies. So let's just remember that we probably were being told the truth in the beginning, that it's not going to be that bad. But as a result of never letting a crisis go to waste and taking advantage of the entire global governances, locking down, shutting down the global economy, and I think there's something else there. I don't have enough information just yet, but I think there's something else there. But unless the U.S. shut down, again, the federal government does not have the right to tell the states that they have to absolutely do this, but they have control over interstate trade. And so you can shut down our ports of entry. You can shut down the airline industry. You can do some of those things from an interstate trade standpoint, but it's up to the governors. And I really appreciate the governor in Oklahoma, really appreciate the governor in South Dakota. And before you say, well, those states, they're not very populated. As the numbers continue to come out, we're going to see that many more of us have already had this. And the mortality rate, though some of the latest information, and you can look it up on YouTube, doctors out of California, is suggesting that it's 0.003, actually less than the seasonal flu. So let's let the numbers keep coming in. But the point that I want to try to make right now is that Fauci was probably telling the truth in the beginning. It's going to be no worse than the seasonal flu. And yet, behind the curtain, somebody said, we're not going to let this crisis go to waste. This gives us an opportunity to do a lot more. We get to print more money than ever before. That means all of our lobbyist friends are going to be happy from a legislative standpoint. For sure, 96-0, we're signing off on this, because we can still have an entire podcast and an entire debate, an entire dialogue, conversation about whether or not the government should be giving out any money. Because as I've already been on record, I don't think any money should have been printed for this. I think 100 years ago, both Wilson, a Democrat, and Harding, a Republican, did a better job. And my French is bad, but it's laissez-faire. It's hands off. Let it take care of itself. But right now, I will say this. Right now, the mainstream media is not spending enough time praising the United States of America, and for the most part, mostly private-based health system. If you look at what single-payer health, and we've been told time and time again about how we need, this is every industrialized first world country has single-payer health. It has health benefits for everybody. How'd that work out for you? Canada, UK, France, Italy, Spain. It doesn't work out so well. We have the best system. We need to fight to keep the best system. As a matter of fact, it was through the efforts of the administration eliminating some of the bureaucracy. And I'll give you one example. A lot of people want to bitch about no testing. We don't have enough tests going on. It took an executive order to eliminate some of the bureaucracy so that the FDA and the CDC could get the hell out of the way so that the test could actually be out there. We are now testing more citizens than any other country on the planet, and we're doing it every single day. And be careful what you wish for. The testing of more people, again, than any other country in the world. Large, randomized, cross-sectional, inclusive testing gives science the law of large numbers. And what does the law of large numbers continue to tell us? Well, first they tell us, wow, just about everybody's dying from corona all of a sudden. COVID-19. Okay, there's something wrong there, and there should be an investigation about that. But the fact is, more Americans have had this. That the law of large numbers is telling us, and everybody doesn't have to be tested like so many talking heads from academia and these people that want to subvert their control over the citizens of the United States. And in the end, a destruction to our economy like this, now you got a 50-50 race in November, and that's all the other side really wanted. So it's not about the science, because what the science is telling us now is that many more Americans have had this, and it is not as deadly as it was suggested. Secondarily, because remember what the primary suggestions were. Dr. Fauci at the end of February said, we don't really have anything to worry about at this time. What changed his mind? Obviously, the numbers coming out of China, they were not accurate. The numbers coming out of elsewhere, we've known now for weeks that the gentleman in charge of the health system in Italy is asking people to go back and try to figure out how people died, because they weren't dying just from COVID-19. All of this, it's just the match that ignited the convergence of a lot of trends. And some of those that I've already talked about. A broken global financial model, the ever-increasing separation between the global and world views of conservatism and liberal or progressivism, and an increased desire to expand the police and surveillance state globally. Who's going to pay for all this? Well, my dear fellow Americans, we are going to pay for all this. How are we going to do it? Well, Brian Maher, I'm going to quote him right now. Very interesting author. I enjoy it. But he says, but even if the government borrows, the pistol comes out. You see, the government takes everything at gunpoint from you and I. But even if the government borrows, the pistol comes out. The citizen must pay to service that loan through taxes. And how? Again, does government take taxes? Either way, the citizen pays. Herr Friedrich Nietzsche certainly hooked onto a truth when he wrote, whatever the state has, it has stolen. Everything about it is false. It bites with stolen teeth. End quote. Those teeth, those stolen teeth, are presently biting hard. We might further mention the silent thief of inflation. This is the clandestine tax that government bites out of its citizens' hides. So here's a timeless economic lesson. In days as these, we might recall the timeless principles of economics. Here is Henry Hazlitt from his masterly primer on economics, Economics in One Lesson. Quote, everywhere government spending is presented as a panacea for all economic ills. Is private industry partially stagnant? Oh, we can fix it all by government spending. Is there unemployment? That is obviously due to insufficient private purchasing power. The remedy is just as obvious. All that is necessary is for the government to spend enough to make up the deficiency. Here we shall have to say simply that all government expenditures must eventually be paid out of die proceeds of taxation. That to put off the evil day merely increases the problem, and that inflation itself, merely a form and a particularly vicious form of taxation, ultimately every dollar of government spending must be raised through a dollar of taxation. Once we look at the matter in this way, the supposed miracles of government spending will appear in another light. End quote. And that light, my dear citizens, will be visible when the present smoke clears out. They keep telling us, actually, they started telling us it wasn't going to be that bad. Fauci hasn't taken nearly the punishment, the criticism that the president has for saying, and an educated scientist, one of our foremost epidemiologists or immunologists, on February 29th, the last day of February, on the mainstream media talk shows. We don't have anything to worry about here. On top of that, in the middle of March, the governor of New York and the mayor of the city of New York City saying, we got the best, New Yorkers, we got the best health system. Nothing to worry about. Go to the show, go to dinner. It happens to be one of the only areas in our country with multiple major international airports in the same very small geological area. It is our most densely populated city by far. There's an old saying, you don't always get what you want, but you do get what you deserve. I think it's a fantastic discussion to ask, because most of the country has not experienced what New York City and the tri-state areas have. Even in the state of Michigan, we have not experienced what our southeastern densely populated areas are. They're laying people off in the hospitals in Grand Rapids. That's another very densely populated area in our state. And yet, they got to send people home, furlough. None of the things happen the way they said they were going to happen. And even as we get the data, and it becomes more and more clear about the science, and we're still being told we'll be fine for non-essential activities outside of our home for another extended 2 more weeks. How is it possible that I am the only, how is it possible that in my family, I'm not the only one, but I'm one of the few. In my circle of friends, there are many friends that think I'm crazy for even suggesting this, that I'm just being dramatic. I'm just being, there's James again. He's just shouting from the rooftops. I find it hard to believe that it's possible that I'm in a minority, that I believe that our freedoms and liberties are worth more than this. I find it hard to believe that citizens of Michigan, citizens of the United States of America, our United States Constitution, I find it hard to believe that we're just willing to throw this away for that perception of safety. I'm going to keep doing this, and I'm going to keep asking you to share this with others, get engaged. We need to hold our elected officials accountable. I'm going to talk more about this in the future, but if you were elected governor of the state of Michigan, you are guaranteed to be reelected. Go ahead, look it up. It's been at least 60 years since anybody has not won re-election. And it might be longer than that. It may have never been through a lost election. It may have been through death. I know it's been real close to at least 60 years before anybody has not won re-election as a governor of Michigan to serve at least 2 terms, and many serve 3. I believe that what has happened to the citizens of Michigan is illegal, unconstitutional. I believe that it is beyond reasonable the governor's authoritative declaration. I'm hoping to be able to talk to any state representative at this point. It doesn't even have to be mine. Obviously, mine's not calling me. The elimination of the Freedom of Information Act until sometime in the future, I don't care if you're going to vote Democrat or Republican in November. That should scare you to the point of action. Not whether or not what all indications are, a virus to respect, because it is very contagious and we don't know who has an underlying health condition, but it should not be feared. And our liberties and our freedoms are not, they should not be risked in any way, shape, or form for this. If you like what you hear today, please become a subscriber. If you already are, please share it with somebody else. And until the next time, I'm James Detroit, and I'm out.